All right, guys, welcome back to another exciting episode of How I Built This, Birmingham Style. Of course, I'm Ron, CEO and founder of Two Maids and a Mop. And of course, our brand new brand, Pink Zebra Movement, is just ramping up. And we can't wait to see how this thing scales and grows across the country, just like Two Maids and a Mop did. And as you know, one of my favorite passions is interviewing entrepreneurs in the Birmingham area, learning about their life, learning about their business, trying to figure out how I can be inspired and inspire other people to create their own success right here in little old Birmingham. And today we have one of Birmingham's most famous entrepreneurs. He's a legend across the legal industry and the marketing world. His name's Alexander Shunnarah. Alexander is the CEO, founder, and president of Alexander Shunnarah Trial Lawyers. He operates across most of the Southeast, from Texas to the Carolinas. He's known for his billboards. He's been named Master of Marketing by industry magazines. And if you're anyone in Birmingham, you've seen at least one, if not 100 of his billboards. So Alexander, welcome to our podcast here today.
Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you having me on. Been looking forward to this all weekend. And what a way to start a Monday morning, right? That's
right. I can't wait. If you're an entrepreneur, like I think both of us are, Monday mornings are just as fun as Friday afternoons. There's no difference in our worlds.
Well, have you ever seen that meme? I kind of sent it out to, I have about 100 attorneys. I sent it out. It's the one about the shark who says he doesn't know it's Monday morning. He's getting up every day and he's just eating and killing and kicking butt, So
right. I like it.
I just got to like that. I just got to have that shark mentality. Hey, Monday's Monday. Let's go.
I like it. Well, as you said, you've got 100 lawyers across the Southeast. You're in multiple states. You're a well-known lawyer, and certainly in Birmingham, but even throughout the legal industry. This all started back in the early 2000s. You left, from what I understand, a private practice to start your own firm. And I'd love to kind of talk to you about your personal journey before we get to all the fun stuff that's happening in the recent days. What was it like back in those early days? Why did you leave private practice to start your own firm?
Well, so it really goes deeper than that. I grew up here in Birmingham. My dad was entrepreneurial in nature. I talk a lot about him. I grew up in the flea markets, if you can believe it or not. I mean, I just remember, just getting up every Saturday, going with my dad to the flea markets. That's just kind of how we made our living. We grew up on South Side. And so I kind of had that spirit. Then he got into the C-stores. Mm-hmm. And, I worked, if you know anything about a C-store, you're sun up, sun down. Then, he had several of them. So I've just worked my entire life. But he always told me, he said, son, you're not going to be a C-store owner. And I thought I was doing pretty good in the C-store business because we, acquired several of them. But, thanks to my father, he continued to push me. And he said, no, you're going to go to law school. And then I did. And just like everybody else, I didn't know anything about the law business. I went to work for a very good law firm called Corey Watson, which is still a very good law firm. And I call it my apprenticeship. I worked there like 5 years. I learned a lot. They really taught me to practice being in that environment. And then around 2001, just like every entrepreneurial spirit, I just, respectfully said, hey, guys, I want to go try to hang my shingle. And they were very kind. And they said, they wished me the best of luck. And that was it.
Well, Alexander, you didn't know this before the interview, but I knew we had a lot in common. But now I think we have even more. My father was a C-store guy as well. And I can remember, I've been entrepreneurial for most of my adult life, all the way back to when I was literally in my 18, 19-year-olds of age. And he opened it when I was a teenager. And as I started growing, I went back to my dad. We grew up in a small town in Georgia. And I said, hey, I got this great idea. We can take this, we can scale it, we can grow, we can open in this market, we can buy this one, we can buy that, and we can just take over the world. And you'll have a consumer brand at some point, years and years from now. And I'll help you lead it. And he said, look, young Ron, I just want to make some money in this little small town in Georgia. I don't know what the heck you're talking about. But like you, I had to do all the stocking, and I can still remember those days where all the hard work had to be put into play.
If I may shout out something though to your father and my father's still with me. He's 84. I'm blessed to have him. He was very similar. He was very happy, content with the couple of C-stores that we had. He didn't really want to move too much. And every time I'd bring ideas to him, I had that same spirit you had. He would just shut it down. But, I guess they knew better. They knew there were better things for you and I. And, possibly by not expanding, we are where we are today.
Absolutely. Everything happens for a reason. There's no doubt about it. So, I think a lot of people that are probably watching this, they're huge fans of yours. They're almost enamored by all the success you've had. But a lot of people that are wondering, well, why are we talking to a lawyer versus, a true entrepreneur? Well, I believe, every lawyer is an entrepreneur. It's a business at the end of the day. But in your case, one, you've helped hundreds, if not thousands of entrepreneurs across the Southeast. And you yourself have used entrepreneurship to scale and become the brand that you are today. So let's kind of talk about those early business lessons. I'm sure we could talk about some legal challenges you had to overcome as well, but let's talk about those early challenges of just building something from the ground up without any prior experience.
I agree with you 100%. I love the law business. But in the end, the law business is just legal services. It's just another service industry where you are representing individuals, in our case, who need your legal services, who do not have law degrees, who are in a situation where they themselves cannot get the results they need, or as we say in some of our spaces, get the justice they need. And so they come to you. But the entrepreneurial part, you hear that a lot sometimes about doctors. I have a lot of friends who are doctors. The old saying, doctors are not good businessmen. Well, the truth is, and I'm being very respectful, I'm probably going to get some hate mail in a minute, but a lot of lawyers are not good businessmen either. And it is a business, and they want to understand why their business isn't any better. Well, because you're just a lawyer, and there is a space. And what I think it's confusing is like you have to know the law. That's a different matter. The Supreme Court justices of the United States don't have a business. Their job is to know the law.
Right.
The judges is their job to know the law. Lawyers, it's our job to know the law. But when you represent a client and you're trying to represent a lot of clients, it's all about the business services and how you are able to perform that at a top-notch level.
Well, in your early days, I've read and I've talked to you, and from what I understand, it started very, very small. It was a guerrilla marketing technique early on, like literally handing out business cards from person to person. Talk to us about those really early days and what life was like, because like you said, you got to know the law, but you also got to be a marketer, you got to be an accountant, you got to be a salesperson. You got to be all these different things, and you're doing it all by yourself.
I tell you, look, so I kind of miss the old days, because, and I think, a part of me in the expansion is going back to the old days, which I just think what you said, you've done incredible in your business, and I want to give you props, even though you're talking to me. I mean, what you've done in the maize business is incredible. But I think without you knowing it subconsciously, the pink zebra, that's just going back and starting over again. And I think, it just lives and breathes in us. So when I open up in a new area, I'm starting at ground zero, and it's just enjoying building something. And that's what it really is. It's obviously helping people and, helping people who work for you. But it's just constantly, it's kind of like football. We love it here. If you think about Nick Saban, I mean, regardless if you're an Alabama fan or if you're an Auburn fan, which I'm not going to say who I pull for because I went to Samford, but every year the chapter starts over for him. He's back to 0-0, and it's that same mentality. You and I will never get there, respectfully. I'm getting a little deep here, but like you never get there, but right. You just keep doing. And I tell people all the time, why are you growing? Why'd you buy that law firm in Boston? Why'd you buy the firm in New Orleans? this past summer. Well, why does Amazon, which is now, became the first $1 trillion company, why do they want to be a $2 trillion company? I mean, you never get there. You just keep moving. And that's what life's about.
I'm a huge fan of mindset and vision, forward thinking. And I agree with you. The art of the journey, to me, is a lot more fun than actually recognizing the end result. I've yet to meet the end of any of my business ideas. And a lot of people probably look at that. And this is actually a real learning lesson for a lot of people that are watching. Am I an entrepreneur? Am I not? A lot of people hear what we're talking about and they say, that sounds painful. That sounds terrible. Why would you want to create pain and misery? Why would you want to go through all this startup risk? Well, for people like us, entrepreneurs, it's fun. It's actually something we want. We embrace it. So if you're wondering, shouldn't I start a business? You need to ask yourself, I think, do I like risk or not? Because entrepreneurs, I think, do.
Yeah, and I get this too. Sometimes people say, well, it's easy for you to take a risk. Well, look, not really. I mean, no one likes to lose money. I mean, and if you're not successful, then I guess you got a little egg on your face. But I can just tell you, in any business, not every decision you make is going to be a good decision. And you mentioned something earlier that people said, oh, you were complimentary, said, I'm a marketing genius, or et cetera, et cetera. And I get a little love like that. I guess as I get older, I'll go to some conventions or wherever I'm at. And they're like, oh, Alex, you're a marketing genius. How do you know so much about marketing? I'm always joking. I was like, well, if you blew $100 million trying to figure something out, I've tried everything, and I still try everything on a daily basis. But in the end, you do have to make very smart, calculated decisions, but not everything works out. Look at Jeffrey Bezos, right? Probably one of the most successful, if not the most successful guy. But he lost, I can't remember the amount. He opened up pets.com and it was an entire flop.
Right.
But he just kind of brushed it off, moved on to the next thing. And, that's just the way it is. When you make a decision, you just have to understand that this is a certain amount that I'm going to risk. I'm going to be comfortable with that risk. It's not going to risk the mothership, as they say, because pets.com was not going to. And you would think pets.com would be the largest, that everybody in the world would buy their food from pets.com. But it just didn't work for some reason. And I don't really know the underlying reasons why it didn't work. But, when I was young, you'd ask that, look, I've always had it. And if you look at and I'm not giving a shout out, I have my own personal public figure page, which is more thought leadership and entrepreneurship is what we're talking about. Because I truly believe, just knowing you now, if you were in my space or I was in your space, we'd still be we would be very successful. And that's what I'm saying. The ideas and the principles that you and I are talking about apply to anything. And I truly believe if I wanted to open up, so my friend, I'll give him a shout out. I go to church with him at Church of the Highlands. He owns On Time, right? Mm-hmm. And he came out of, now think about the HVAC business. All the HVAC people that were in Birmingham for 100 years. And then Kerry comes in and he's kind of taken over that space,
Yep, he has.
And it's amazing what he's done. But I kid with him. I was like, well, you're just lucky I don't want to be in the HVAC business, or you don't want to be in the HVAC business, or whatever business that is. This pink zebra thing, it's amazing to me. There's 1 million moving companies, but you're going in the business.
Yeah, we're excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I do have the passion, as you can tell. It's not fake, it's real. I think I was born with it. I think entrepreneurship has a little bit of a DNA in it. I do believe that it was a principle taught to us by our fathers. Like I said, look, when you're in the flea market and you're 10 years old and you're in Bessemer and, I'm a smart 10-year-old and, that's how dad puts food on the table. And he says, hey, I'm going to go get some merchandise. When I get back, you need to sell $50. That puts a lot of pressure on you. It's like a game-winning 50-yard field goal in the Super Bowl, right? So I'm just, I'm there, I'm just by myself. But you know what it did? It made me a people person. And I've always said this, I genuinely love human beings with all my heart. I see the good and the bad. I know that we are all born with a sinful nature and all that, but I really love the humanity. And I think people are genuinely good people. And, I tell a lot of my lawyers, like, you're in the wrong business if you don't like people. Like that's who we represent, are people.
Right.
So we have to like who we represent.
Man, this is such a fun conversation. And it's hitting on so many points that I think everyone needs to hear. I've said this before in this podcast, but the Shark Tank's fun and it's entertaining, but it's created this phenomenon where everyone thinks they can start a business overnight with some capital and then become rich and famous. They never show the other parts. They never show the hard work, the late nights, the restless nights, the sacrifices that an entrepreneur makes. If they showed that, nobody would think entrepreneurship's that sexy, because it's not. It's not Hollywood. It's real life.
And I'll tell you this. You could see that I'm very honest, very transparent. The older I get, I'm 54 this year. I'm just so much more transparent about my thoughts and my feelings and my ideas. It is a sacrifice, but it's the greatest sacrifice. And it's what I don't think, like, for anyone who's listening to this podcast, like, we are in a stage right now where more people are opening up businesses than ever before, which is great, because that was the whole idea of capitalism anyway.
Right.
And you should do that. And I encourage that. Look, I have lawyers come to me all the time, who are in law school. Well, I call them lawyers, but they're lawyers, going to be lawyers. They're like, what do you think I should do? Who should I go work for? I was like, hang your shingle. Like, you'll thank me later. Hang your shingle. Because there's nothing better than owning your own business. Just, and it's a great thing. And I know you feel the same way I feel. It's not a job to me.
No.
I don't go to work. I kind of say, I don't think LeBron considers it work, or, if he does, I don't know, I'm making that assumption, but it's just what you and I do. It's just who we are. It's what we do. I think Freud said it's your id. I kind of call it, the good book says, it's our heart, mind, and soul, but it's just what we do. It's just who we are on a daily basis. It's just how we think. I wouldn't know what else. I wouldn't know what else to do. I don't know how to be anything other than I am today.
I agree with you. So I want to learn a little bit about those early days, because I'm assuming, like every great business owner, there were some struggles. There was some real pain even and failure early on. So what, did you just jump right out of the gate, or was there some missteps in those early days?
Yeah. So let me get that. So honestly, everybody's journey is a little different, and you understand this. And it's a lot of times it's about timing and market conditions. I attribute some of my success. I think if you really looked at my model, it was, and it doesn't have to be this in every business, but it was kind of the inch by inch is a cinch and a yard is hard. Because truthfully, in my business, I don't know any law firm that's ever been built. If you look at all the big law firms, you can't fast track a law firm. It's very difficult. If you're an oil chic millionaire or billionaire and you want to buy a big law firm, okay. But when you, like today we sit here, right? And I'll go back to that real quick. But let's say I doubled the amount of cases I got overnight because I have the resources or the money to go get them, let's say. I still can't service those people.
Right.
Instead of 100 lawyers, I would need 200 lawyers. Instead of 400 staff members, I would need 800 staff members. Instead of this number of buildings, I would need that number of buildings. Everything doubles. So it was just done one step at a time. Yeah, it was fun. Look, it started with the business cards. I thought I knew everybody, kind of like you in Birmingham, right?
Sure.
I was like, I don't need to market. I don't need to brand. I don't need to advertise. I was born in Birmingham. I went to high school here. I went to college here. I went to law school here. But you quickly get out, figure out if you're going to depend on your friends and family, you're going to starve real quick. So,
unless you're doing it for free, right?
Yeah, unless you're doing it for free. Yeah, and then when they want, and those people, because you do know them, want it for free, right? So, or at a great discount.
Yeah.
So, I started paying attention to, my competition. I was like, so why is this guy so successful? And back in the day, it was more traditional advertising. And you know what I'm talking about. It was pre-digital space, right? It's
right.
So, well, he's on TV, he's on billboards, he's on the radio, he does community service. I don't have any money. So what do? So let's start with the business cards. And then, we started doing my guerrilla marketing. Like you say, I call it the Shunnarah swag now. Let me do this one community event. Let me get a little ad in the phone book. And then you just start to build. And then my TV, my favorite part is I used to buy overnight television, right? Nobody's watching from 12 midnight till the news starts 4:59 a.m., right? Now the TV stations own all, now I think they've even backed it up to 4:30, but back in the day at 5 o'clock is when you had the first news station. And it used to be, and you'll find this funny. So you could buy one 30-second ad for $5 and you would get one for free. So, being a guy who used to sell sunglasses for $5 and get the second one for free, that kind of just, I was like, yeah, this sounds like a good deal. So let's do that. But it's been a good journey. I would just say this: every year has just been incrementally better in terms of number of clients retained and in terms of revenue grossed. So it's been fun.
Well, we got to hit the big elephant in the room right on the head here. The billboards. I don't know how it all started. I can't wait to hear that story, but it's changed the game. I'm assuming for you. It's definitely worked. I don't know. I could go find 100 people on the road right now, and 100 people would know your name because of those billboards. So tell us a little bit about that story.
It's a true story. And I've told it before. So one day, when I move, when I do move, I move fast on something. But sometimes it takes me a while to get there. But when I'm ready to go, I'll go. So one morning I woke up and I promise. So I read the USA Today back when the print was still around, in the Wall Street Journal, and just the business side of me. And I had read that in the city of San Francisco, this was around 2008, that they had outlawed phone books. And that just really resonated with me because at that time, now we're talking about 7 or 8 years into my practice after the 5 years, I was spending about $100,000 a month in about 30 phone books, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started, thinking about that. And I think that was one of those moments where I just understood that print was dying and I needed to kind of move in a different direction. The funny part is the person that I purchased, you got that one ad person that you purchase from and you become friends with them. So one of the hardest things was telling him I wasn't going to renew the next year. And, it was a big number to him. If it was, it was probably $100,000 of commissions he would lose the following year,
Yeah.
And I don't think he still has spoken to me since I canceled that order. And he was kind of a distant cousin to make it worse.
Oh gosh.
And that's a true story. But that was it. It was just reading that article about the phone books, not being, they were going to print them. It's just the phone companies could not bring them into the city of San Francisco and leave them, I guess, however they delivered them.
Yeah, the paper ship. Yeah.
And so then I said, okay, I've got this extra $100,000, monthly. So what do I do? And, I'd known about billboards, but I was always told, you've got a circle of law, right? Just like a circle of every business. And they're like, oh, they don't work. Nobody does them. They don't work. And I was like, okay. So, you remember I've been a lawyer 12 years, 5 at that company and 7 or 8 on my own, but I went and did my homework on them because I was curious. So why does Coca-Cola do them? Why does, the big boys do them? McDonald's, Coke. Why does corporate America, the 500 biggest companies, do it? And so I started reading about it, and I just researched it just on my own. And what it basically said, and everybody knows, it's just a branding mechanism. So then the first thought in my mind was, well, could a lawyer even be a brand? What is a brand? I don't even know if we are a brand, but can we be a brand? And then it talked about, 7 words or less. It talked about this one thing. It said and I'm kind of summing it up. There's a ping factor that when you drive past a billboard, that it will ping you consciously or subconsciously. You don't even know it's pinging your mind, but it'll ping your mind. And then it talked about the whole tier step of billboards where, like, it's not a direct response advertising, which is what lawyers always want, right?
Sure.
The phone has to ring immediately, because, you spend money, the phone rings, you get a client. And it was very clear that's not what it's about. And so, but it said that if you could put up some boards and you could leave them there, because year 2, it says, is better than year 1. And then 3 is better than 2. And 4 is better than 3. So kind of for me, when I was looking at it, it was like, I'm never leaving Alabama. I want to be in the legal space in Alabama. I'm not going to do anything but the legal space. And so would it be worth investing in a board? And I only bought the first board. Lamar, recently I asked for my contract, my first contract I ever signed, and they were kind enough to bring it to me. And I'm going to kind of frame it just for, you get older, you get sentimental, right? So I'm going to put it in a little frame and just remember the first. But I did it up on Red Mountain, and it was that digital board that's still real popular. And it was amazing to me because I was on that late night TV. I'd been in the phone books. I'd been everywhere. And people would they would say, every now and then they say, I saw your ad or saw this. But somehow when I put that board up, and I don't know why, it's like every day somebody's like, man, I saw your board. I like your board. I saw your board. I like your board. I saw your board. And I was like, there's something a little different about that. Why are so many people telling me something that I'm not hearing in these other spaces?
Right.
And then, one led to 10 and 10 to 20. And now there's 2,500 across the Southeast.
That's so crazy. This time of year has got to be good for you with all the people from driving from Birmingham to the Gulf Coast, right? This is
yeah, I tell you, it is good for you, except when. So I'm being funny, is that all right? Except
Sure.
when I had this mother call me a couple of years ago and was upset with me because her and her friend, the girlfriends decided that they wanted to take a shot every time they saw an Alexander Shunnarah billboard.
No.
And her daughter got immensely drunk, and somehow that was my fault. And I honestly had this 30-minute conversation because I'm such a nice guy trying to explain to this lady that it really was not my responsibility. But I was sorry that I didn't make it a drinking game, But it was a
crazy.
real conversation. I've heard some crazy stories, but you ought to see some of the stories because of the billboards. It's funny.
It's so fun. And you know what? When you can make a law firm fun, think about it. You've won. That's victory. It's most people. Look, I've made a lot of lawyers successful in the 18 years I've been in business. None of those have been that enjoyable, the experiences. So if you can make it fun, that's a win for you. In my opinion.
It is fun. Look, and it's challenge. The thing about the legal business and the legal space is, and I got to be careful and be respectful to everybody. It's, we're always going to have, so insurance companies, they're going to do everything in their power to hang on to their money. Okay, that's just the game we play. And that's their responsibility to their shareholders. So I don't have a problem with that. But at the same time, we go to war every day. Every case is different. You've got the law that's kind of the premise, right? And you'll have the facts regarding the case. And then you take the law and you apply it to the set of facts. And Either you're on the good side of it or the bad side of it. But it's like playing poker almost every day or playing chess every day. And the people who are better at the game just win a little bit more. That's all.
Right. Well,
Or win for their clients more.
right. So things are going well. You know, you've scaled outside of that small law firm in Birmingham. You're bigger than just one person. Obviously, you've got hundreds of people, from lawyers to staff members, working for you. You're in, I think you said 1,200 billboards. Is that right? 12, all these, all the success. You're living the American dream. So let's go back, because from the outside looking in, a lot of entrepreneurs see people like yourself and go, man, everything was just so perfect, and we've heard a little bit of mistakes during this conversation. But if you could go back to that first day, even that first year when you opened your firm, and you could start over, what's just one thing, literally just one thing you would do differently today now that you've lived through the experience?
I will say this. I would probably have, let me be very respectful. So one, I would have marketed sooner, because that's how much I believe in marketing. Right now you obviously have the digital space. So the barrier to entry right now, look, if you just had a Facebook account and had your 5,000 friends, you can market to them every day for free. Mm-hmm. So, we didn't even have that at the time. So I would have marketed sooner. I wasted a couple of years probably not marketing. And I mean this, and it was difficult to do, because when you're smaller, you can't attract top legal talent. But I would have, as soon as possible, I would have fast-tracked trying to get the top legal talent. But at the same time, it was very difficult to do that, right? Because you're balancing your marketing,
right,
where you need to spend money. But then if you have to pay top legal talent, then you don't have the money for marketing. And that's why I've always said it's kind of just one step at a time. And, guys like you and I, if we could meet with anyone, and you just have to give them a business plan, and they just have to have patience and trust that it's just one step at a time. But the biggest mistake I have seen, and I know this will resonate with you, is people don't put their money back in their business. And so you're telling me about the challenges that you're asking me about the challenges. The one thing that of all the things that I think I have done correctly, is every dollar I have made goes back into my business. And I think people don't understand that sacrifice. And that's the sacrifice that they don't want to do. Trust me. It's not even the work sometimes. It's the parting of their money, because the mindset in this world is, I worked so hard and I made this $10. So I'm going to take this $10 and buy X, or I'm going to make this $10 and buy this house, this car, this boat, this second car. No, you take the $10 and you put it back in your business. And as we sit here today, I mean, all my money is in my business. I mean, yes, we have a nice home here in Vestavia, but you take away my home and a few cars, 99% of my money is in my business.
Mm. One of my favorite people, and this is going to sound way too easy, is Warren Buffett. I've never had a chance to meet him, but I've read way too much and followed him for probably way too long. So I know way too much about him, like I said. One of the things I learned years ago is, as an entrepreneur, as you grow your business, one of the things you have to grow into is a capital allocator. And that may sound super boring to somebody that's just getting this thing off the ground. But when you think about what you can do with your money, your capital, you can pay taxes, you can pay down some debt, you can make some external investments, or you can make some internal investments. Those internal investments usually get the least amount of love because, one, they're probably a little bit harder to measure, and they don't always, usually don't, provide immediate gratification. You cut a check to yourself in the form of a dividend, go buy a boat. You make an external investment, you buy a new business, you feel that. You pay down some debt, you feel that. Internal investments take time. There's rarely immediate satisfaction from that. So I agree with you. That's a secret to success for a lot of people, that most people don't want to embrace?
Well, let me think about this. I'll say this and respectfully. So, we talked about a mutual friend we had, and look, I've got a lot of friends all over the country, in a lot of different sectors. Um, I, I'll tell you, I'm amazed by entrepreneurs who could do like 20 things who have 20 different businesses. I'm not that type of entrepreneur because maybe as you get older, but I don't know any investment that I have ever made that has yielded a better return than investing back into my business. And then at least I'm controlling that business. So I have a little bit to do with that business, or a lot to do with it. Obviously, then, trusting some other person to have the same work ethic and mentality and risk tolerance and all the things. Now, not to take away from all the great investments out there, but if we're talking about building a business and growing a business, scaling a business, it takes capital. And so if you make money, you have to put it back in your business.
Right. All right. So hear what you would do differently. All of those were great ideas. And every single entrepreneur that wants to start a business or is building a business right now needs to hear that. Investing in your business, there can't be a better piece of advice. But let's fast forward to where you are today. Life's completely different for you, I'm assuming, than it was in 2001, 2002 when you started the firm. What's life like today for you compared to those early days?
Well, I mean, obviously, at this stage, we talk about it. I don't want to, I'm more the visionary of the firm, right? I am the person who's trying to continuously grow the firm. I'm the one who's obviously financing the firm. I'm the one who's hand selecting, let's say, the generals or the top lieutenants or the best lawyers I could find in the firm. But, I'm hands-on. Obviously you can't get away from even, is the trash taken out? I mean, you're always going to be involved in all of that. But, the best advice, is the best thing I can do right now is to make sure that the people I hire, buy into the idea, the brand, the culture, what's important, where we're going, what we're trying to accomplish. And you got to pay people well. I mean, you have to pay people well. That's another point that people don't understand. I mean, because you're going to lose top talent, because top talent is always discovered. It's not discovered just in the NFL. It's discovered in every sector.
Absolutely. And
it's discovered in every sector. And so my lawyers, to me, they're all my partners. Maybe not technically 50-50 partners, but they're my partners. We're in this together. We're doing life together. It's a mission that we're doing. And if you don't treat them right, and if you don't pay them well, and if they can't take care of their families, you're not going to keep them very long.
I totally agree. And I've seen that firsthand. I made some bad mistakes early on in my business by understanding that principle and had to learn it the hard way. So again, anyone listening, don't learn it like we did. Don't lose that top talent. Grow with those folks.
No, I mean, you just can't lose that top talent. I've got that old saying, you can't take a pack of mules to the horse track, right? And the trial attorneys at Alexander Shunnarah are thoroughbreds. Well, guess what? Thoroughbreds have to be paid well, because if you don't pay them well, another law firm will pay them well. And those and also I tell you, the people that I'm talking about looking for, typically they own their own law firms anyway. So they're difficult to find. So when you do find one who's a superstar, you just might as well just make them your partner under the shield.
Yeah.
But, so this is the way I think about it. And, I can tell that you and I really connect is, when someone climbs Mount Everest, they always take a picture of themselves, right?
Right.
So so it kind of gives the image, I climbed the largest mountain, whatever it is, 14,000 feet by myself. But I always joke. I mean, you don't see the 10 Sherpas that died getting them up the mountain. And so the example is no one gets to the top by themselves. You have to take people along the way. They got all these quotes about how many millionaires Sam Walton made, how many millionaires Warren Buffett made. You know, how many millionaires all these people make. I mean, you may be the face, but, you know, you can't forget, like, you're only one person, and no one can grow a business without a team and an army and trusted. You know, it's just the way it is. Even Alexander the Great, since I'm Alexander, I love him. I read all his stuff. I mean, remember when he died, his 4 generals took his 4 kingdoms, 3/4 of the world. I mean, those were his 4 trusted aides. I mean, you got to take your team with you.
I totally agree. So let's talk a little bit about Birmingham. You're born and raised here. You've built a strong business here. You've done a lot for the community. You have obviously employed a lot of people. You've been a good thing for this community. I am not originally from Birmingham, but I've fallen in love with it. That's why I'm doing this, because I believe that Birmingham is a special place that is great for family. It's got a great community feel to it, and it's got sort of the best of all the worlds. It's got the small town feel with a large presence as well. So I love talking to other entrepreneurs that have built great businesses in the Birmingham area, because I want other people to follow in our footsteps. What are your thoughts on the spirit here, the entrepreneurial spirit that you've seen across the Birmingham community?
I tell you, I think it's amazing. I mean, I agree obviously with you. Look, I love Birmingham. I want to die obviously in Birmingham. I mean, my dad came here when he was 12 years old. He just lives a couple of doors down from me here in Vestavia. You know, you couldn't move my wife and my 3 daughters. You know, I mess with them all the time, you know, just in a joking way. I was like, y'all want to move to New York, Miami? No way, Dad. No way, Dad. It's like, of course, I would never move there. But I think what they've done with the revitalization of Birmingham is amazing in the downtown area. Obviously, you know, you see all the smaller cities. You know, everybody's trying to keep their dollars at home. You get that. So home, you know, I mean, a lot of the neighborhoods get upset, but you're going to see more and more commercial for revenue purposes in Vestavia and Homewood and Mountain Brook and Hoover and Trussville and pretty much every town, because everybody's trying to keep their dollars in. And so that is what's going to generate and advance things. I mean, you know, money's cheap right now, so a lot of people are borrowing money.
Right.
And you know, I think it's just going to only essentially just get better and better and better. I mean, you know, of course, UAB is tempered. I mean, it's the university that ate Birmingham, right? You know, that's what they call it. So, I mean, they're 10%. They're the state's largest employer. You know, right. They're not going anywhere. So,
well, Alexander,
I love it. You know, my.
Go ahead.
I was going to say my college roommate is actually the head basketball coach at UAB, Andy Kennedy.
Is that
great
right?
Guy.
What a small world.
Great guy.
Well, you've been great for the community. I'm personally inspired by your story. You know, I don't care if you're running a Fortune 500 company or if you're just trying to get a small business off the ground in the retail, you know, street down the road. Anybody that hears your story is going to learn something from it. And I know they did today. So, Alexander, it's been an honor, a privilege to have a chance to talk with you, interview you, learn from you. Anybody out there that wants to find you, they shouldn't have a problem, because all they got to do is look up on a billboard. But for anyone that does want to have an opportunity to connect and engage with you, what can they do to do that?
And I'm really, you know, I'm pretty easy to connect with, engage. I mean, of course, they can email me. I look at my emails. My cell number is on the website, or, you know, through the social platforms, or
right.
Just reach out to me. And, you know, I always make time for everyone.
Well, I'm proud to call you a fellow entrepreneur right here in Birmingham, Alabama. I hope our brands keep growing and keep being just as successful. And more importantly, I hope somebody that's listening to this show right now today can, down the road, whether it's 5 years, 10, 15 years from now, can look back and say that 45 minutes I spent listening to Alexander talk about his story helped me, inspired me to build my own business. And, you know, their life, along with other people's lives, have changed because of it. So, Alexander, thanks for your time today. I know you're a busy man, and hopefully we can do it again sometime down the road.
Yes, sir. I hope to see you soon. Okay.
You bet. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.